it shall come to pass, if you diligently obey the voice of the Lord your God, to observe carefully all his commandments which I command you today, that the Lord your God will set you high above all nations of the earth. And all these blessings shall come upon you and overtake you, because you obey the voice of the Lord your God. Blessed shall you be in the city, and blessed shall you be in the country. Blessed shall be the fruit of your body, the produce of your ground, and the increase of your herds, the increase of your cattle, and the offspring of your flocks. Blessed shall be your basket and your kneading bowl. Blessed shall you be when you come in, and blessed shall you be when you go out. The Lord will cause your enemies who rise against you to be defeated before your face. They shall come out against you one way and flee before you 7 ways. The Lord will command the blessing on you in your storehouses, and in all to which you set your hand. And he will bless you in the land which the Lord your God is giving you. The Lord will establish you as a holy people to himself, just as he has sworn to you. If you keep the commandments of the Lord your God, and walk in his ways, then all peoples of the earth shall see that you are called by the name of the Lord, and they shall.
So what was that telling us about the curse? If we didn't do, if we did everything God told us to do, we would come out ahead. But you know, our peoples are so hard headed that you know we do things our way. We don't worry about what the Lord says or what nothing else. We just care about one thing, and that's our own. And that's the reason we are here in America and at the four corners of the earth serving Satan. And we are slaves. We still is slaves. People think because we walk around free that we are not slaves. But we are. We are still slaves. They are still putting black men and black women in jail. They are still shooting us down in the streets like we are dogs. They still talk to us like we ain't nothing. And we got brothers and sisters out there fighting over a chicken breast on 2 pieces of bread at a Popeye's chicken. So I mean, think about this, Hebrews. What's really going on? Do you think this stuff is staged? If you do, put it in the down in the comments. Do you think the white man has staged this against us? Do you think that they hire people to go out and act stupid or whatever? You know, then they make fun of us, man. I'm quite sure these murders at Popeye don't been sent all over the world over a piece of chicken. Next, they're gonna come out with some watermelon and having us eating watermelon. These are the curses that's on us. But we could have had the blessings just the same as it was just talked about if we would have only kept the laws of the Most High. But we're gonna go back and listen to some more, and we're gonna talk on it.
Commandments of the Lord your God, and walk in his ways. Then all peoples of the earth
He
shall
said,
see
if
that
you
you are
keep the
called by the
commandments.
name of the Lord, and they shall be afraid of you. And the Lord will grant you plenty of goods in the fruit of your body, in the increase of your livestock, and in the produce of
And if
your
you do what
ground,
the
in the
Lord
land
says, you
which
will
the Lord
become
swore to your
rich.
fathers to give you. The Lord will open to you his good treasure, the heavens, to give the rain to your land
And
in its
everybody
season,
out there know
and
that's
to
when we
bless all
fight for
the
that
work
good
of your
treasure up in
hands.
the
You
heavens.
shall lend to many nations, but you shall not borrow.
Who do we
The
lend
Lord
money
will
to?
make you the head and not the tail. You shall be above only, and not be beneath, if you heed the commandments of
We
the
are
Lord your
beneath
God,
everybody on
which I
this earth
do
because
command
we
you
did
and
not
are
keep the
careful to
commandments of the
observe.
Father.
So you shall not turn aside from any of the words which I command you this day, to the right or the left, to go after other gods to serve them. But
And
it
how
shall
many of
come
you
to
out there
pass, if you do not
serve
obey the
that
voice
false
of the Lord
Jesus?
your God, to observe carefully all his commandments and his statutes which I command you today, that
He
all
don't
these
ask much
curses
of us.
will come upon you and overtake you. Cursed shall you be in the city, and cursed shall you be in the country. Cursed shall be your basket and your kneading bowl. Cursed shall be the fruit of your body, and the produce of your land, the increase of your cattle, and the
He
offspring
said
of
we
your
shall be
flocks. Cursed
cursed.
shall you be when you come
Anything
in,
we put
and
our
cursed
hands
shall
on
you be
shall
when you
not
go out.
prosper.
The Lord will send on you cursing, confusion, and rebuke in all that you set your hand
Now,
to do, until you are destroyed and until you perish quickly because of the wickedness of your doings in which you have forsaken me. The Lord will make the plague cling to you until he has consumed you from the land which you are going to possess. The Lord will strike you with consumption, with fever, with inflammation, with severe burning fever, with the sword, with scorching, and with mildew. They shall pursue you until you perish. And your heavens which are over your head shall be bronze, and the earth which is under you shall be iron. The Lord will change the rain of your land to powder and dust. From the heaven it shall come down on you until you are destroyed. The Lord will cause you to be defeated before your enemies. You shall go out one way against them and flee 7 ways before them, and you shall become troublesome to all the kingdoms of the earth. Your carcasses shall be
Like
full
right
of
now here in
fire and
America, they
snare and the
tell the
beasts of
world
the
that
earth, and no one
we
shall
out here
escape.
murdering and all of this,
The
and
Lord will
what this
strike
is
you with
saying is
swords and
happening
with
right now to us.
rumors, with the
It's happening
stabs of the
to the
heathen,
Hebrews,
from which you
to
cannot
Judah,
heal.
and all the other
The Lord will
tribes that's
strike
scattered
you
all
with
over the
famine
world.
and
That's what
blindness
he
and
just said.
confusion
We
among
shall
you.
be trouble
You
to
shall
the
know
nations
that you have
because we
tasted
did
the
not keep
bankruptcy
the
of the
commandments
heavens.
of God,
You shall
and
not
God
prosper
got
in your
tired of
ways.
us.
You shall be only oppressed and plundered continually, and no one shall save you. You shall betroth a wife, but another man shall lie with her.
Now,
In
where
your
did
own
this
house
happen at?
you
Did
shall
this
not
happen at
dwell with her.
slavery?
You shall
Did
plunder
we
the
get
earth,
married
but
to
cannot gather the
other
fruit.
women's and women's get
Blood
married to
shall be
men's,
slaughtered before
and
your eyes, but you
we
shall
had
not
to
eat it.
share our
The
wife
donkey
on
shall
that
be
night
violently taken
with the
away from
slave
you
owner,
from
or
you, and
the
shall not
man
be
that whooped your
consumed.
ass or whatever.
Your sheep shall
Where
be
did this
among
happen
your
at?
enemies,
It
and you
happened
shall
to
have
us,
no
and it happened
advantage.
right here in the
Your
United
sons and
States.
your daughters shall be
It's
your
hard to believe
foreknowledge.
that people would
Your
not
eyes shall
understand that.
look and fail with longing for them all day long, and there shall be no strength in your hand. A nation whom you have not known shall eat the fruit of your land and the produce of your labor, and you shall be only oppressed and crushed continually.
Let me ask you a question out there, Hebrews. What group of peoples on this earth was sold into slavery, and when they had kids, that their kids was took from them and sold to other people? That ain't nothing but one race on this earth that ever happened to. I wonder who is those peoples? In the comment section, I wonder could y'all leave me a comment telling me who those peoples is, if you have a clue. But from my opinion, I think it's us here in America, and all the ones of us was sold in the Atlantic slave trade and sold all around the world. That's who I believe. And in some countries right now today, like the white man said, ain't no more slavery in the earth. I don't know what they call the earth, because in some countries right now today, there are still slaves. And there are people every day, women's getting raped in these countries because some man says that they own her, and it makes no sense. How in good faith can them peoples over there in Israel call themselves the real Israelites? How? And they never went through nothing we went through. Lord, history books only tell of one race of peoples going through this, and that's us. These other nations, man, just claiming to be us, I don't understand it, man. Why would they play with God and they go to church and call themselves angelical Christians, and these people call themselves loving each other, loving the world, and when they stood, same people stood by and watched black folks be hanged on from trees, and they brought picnics. Some of them, they hey people, y'all can research this. Some of them, they sold tickets to some of them hangings of our people. They sold hangings of that. They sold tickets of that. They sold tickets of, and nations came, peoples came from everywhere. They kept the old prisoner in jail and barely fed him. He was already half dead by the time he got there, because you're quite sure, just thinking about that, they don't took him out the cell and beat his ass every day and fed him dog shit and all that he had to eat just to survive. These people was cruel, man. And this stuff is real. They got fellows out there now online that's trying to tell you the transatlantic slave trade never happened. But hey man, I guess he's to their own. I guess he's scared to say who he is. Say he's a descendant of slaves. Some people is scared of that, and they don't like that thing, and they don't like to say that. They'll say anything and they will do anything. But we know just about what he just got through, what we just got through hearing, that we the people that was we were betrothed, women were betrothed to a man, but she had to sleep with her master before she could sleep with her husband. And then sometimes, how cruel that was. Sometimes he would have children by his uh his slave, and that would be his son or daughter coming up, and he would treat her just as worse, his daughter just as worse as he would his mother. These people is devils, and they're evil. They would do anything in this world to hurt you. They do not love us, not one bit. They would do anything to us that they think they can get away with. They would do it. I mean, like it's like we have no feelings. We have no feelings, and you can talk to some of them, and they come up and they actually they kind of say it. And you can talk to them, and when you're looking at them, they smirking and looking at you like they're gonna have the last word. No, 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 no. We're gonna have the last word, Hebrews. We're gonna have the last word. All we need to do is keep the commandments, keep the Sabbath, no buying, no selling, no nothing. We need to keep the commandments and do what the Most High have instructed us to do. We're gonna listen to some more.
Of your head, the Lord will bring you and the king whom you set over you to a nation which neither you nor your fathers have known, and there you shall serve other gods, wood and stone, and you shall become an astonishment.
Now, how many out there just heard that we will serve woods, false gods, false gods like kneeling to a rock, kissing on rocks, uh, following, wearing crosses around our neck, a killing device. Why don't we just wear a electric chair? Why don't we just buy us a pistol put around our neck? Why don't we just any killing device? Why don't we just put any killing device that's out there around our neck? It says this is we can call it anything you want to call it. But why don't we do that? Because if we do that, we are breaking the laws of the Most High, and it's a lot of us here in America that just ain't got enough. They study doing it, and they will always do it. And even in the time of Jesus, I'm quite sure during then it was a lot that was non-believers. A lot of people didn't even believe Jesus was the Son of God. Because he was raised up in where he was raised up at, and the people knew him from around the town, and they just didn't believe who he was. So it's got that, man. We don't see nobody for us to believe in the Most High. We know the Most High is there though. Let's listen to some more.
The Lord will strike you with madness and blindness and confusion of heart, and you shall grope at noonday as a blind man gropes in darkness. You shall not prosper in your ways. You shall be only oppressed and plundered continually, and no one shall save you. You shall betroth a wife, but another man shall lie with her. You shall build a house, but you shall not dwell in it. You shall plant a vineyard, but shall not gather its grapes. Your ox shall be slaughtered before your eyes, but you shall not eat of it. Your donkey shall be violently taken away from before you, and shall not be restored to you. Your sheep shall be given to your enemies, and you shall have no one to rescue them. Your sons and your daughters shall be given to another people, and your eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all day long, and there shall be no strength in your hand. A nation whom you have not known shall eat the fruit of your land and the produce of your labor, and you shall be only oppressed and crushed continually.
Okay, Hebrew. When them peoples over there in Israel was sent to another world, and where they didn't know the people, they was in Europe. A lot of them come from Europe, and they've been there for all their lives because that's what they are. Even the DNA tells you that they are Europeans. So I mean, they come up with lies and all these trickeries to try to tell us that we are nobody, and they call us the bywords and the by names of nigger, spook, uh, blackie, or whatever. Whatever they could, whatever them got, whatever that Esau could come up with to make us look bad. You know, and I understand kind of why Esau does that, because if the Bible spoke against you, if the Bible spoke against you and told the world that you was evil and the devil, would you try to uh, throw the blame on your brother or somebody else? You try to get that blame off of you. You don't want to carry that burden all around the world where somebody see you coming. They think that you are the are a nuisance. And so just like when you see people coming to your house, oh man, I know he ain't coming over here. I know he ain't coming over here. Oh man, tell him I ain't home. We don't. That's the way. That's the same way the nations treat us. I know they ain't coming to my country to live. We're gonna get them out here real quick because the United States have waged a campaign against us to show the world that we are the most evil peoples on the earth, when really they are the children of the synagogue of the devil. In Revelation tell you, Jesus speaks on it. We're gonna listen to a little bit more.
And there you shall serve other gods, wood and stone. And you shall become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations where the Lord will drive you. You shall carry much seed out to the field, but gather little in, for the locust shall consume it. You shall plant vineyards and tend them, but you shall neither drink of the wine nor gather the grapes, for the worms shall eat them. You shall have olive trees throughout all your territory, but you shall not anoint yourself with the oil, for your olives shall drop off. You shall beget sons and daughters, but they shall not be yours, for they shall go into captivity. Locusts shall consume all your trees and the produce of your land. The alien who is among you shall rise higher and higher above you, and you shall come down lower and lower. He shall lend to you, but you shall not lend to him. He shall be the head, and you shall be the tail. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon you, and pursue and overtake you until you are destroyed, because you did not obey the voice of the Lord your God.
Again, how do this not fit us? Nations shall come be get higher than us. We shall borrow, but we will never have nothing to lend. What peoples? How do them peoples in Israel fit that scenario? They don't. Them are some of the most richest peoples in the world, and the United States helped to make it like that. The country that enslaved us help other uh, peoples of the Holocaust come out. I mean, get money and where they can survive. But they have never, in one time, done nothing for us here, and they never will. The only thing they ever done for us is hang one of our black ass up by a tree. I'm sorry about that, but the only thing they have ever done for us is to put us on a tree and with a rope around our neck and hang us. We die here in America the same way Jesus died over there. We die with our hands up in front of our families. We get shot any kind of way. Do it sound like anybody at the care? And the first time you tell a brother about love, that you love your people and that we the Hebrew, and the first thing a nigga asks you is one thing: what about the white man? The white man didn't worry about you when he was putting you up on a tree. So why is you worried about this devil?
Hunger, in thirst, in nakedness, and in need of everything. And he will put a yoke of iron on your neck until he has destroyed you. The Lord will bring a nation against you from afar, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flies, a nation whose language you will not understand.
The eagle. What is the United States symbol?
Does not
The
respect
eagle.
the elderly, nor show favor to the young. And they shall eat the increase of your livestock and the produce of your land until you are destroyed. They shall not leave you grain or new wine or oil.
Those of us that do own farms and you eat, you get your food. But how much land do you have to plant your stuff on, and how much land do the white man have to plant his stuff on?
And they shall besiege you at all your gates throughout all your land which the Lord your God has given you. You shall eat the fruit of your own body, the flesh of your sons and your daughters, whom
Meaning
the
you're
Lord
gonna
your
be
God
so
will bring
hungry that
into the
you ain't
siege
gonna know
and
what to do.
desperate straits in which your enemy shall distress you. The sensitive and very refined man among you will be hostile toward his brother, toward the wife of his bosom.
And how's we doing now here in America? Is we not out there in the streets killing each other? Are we not out when a man go to work, you come through the back door?
Nothing left in the siege and desperate straits in which your enemy shall distress you at all your gates. The tender and delicate woman among you, who would not venture to set the sole of her foot on the ground because of her delicateness and sensitivity, will refuse to the husband of her bosom, and to her son and her daughter, her placenta, which comes out from between her feet, and her children whom she bears. For she will eat them secretly for lack of everything in the siege and desperate straits in which your enemy shall distress.
Anybody out there listen to this? Tell me what period in the comment section that this happened.
Of this law that are written in this book, that you may fear this glorious and awesome name, the Lord your God. Then the Lord will bring upon you and your descendants extraordinary plagues, great and prolonged plagues, and serious and prolonged sicknesses.
Cancer. We number one in cancer. We number one in AIDS. We number one in every disease, almost every disease on this planet. But don't let it be fooled. Esau got them too.
The Lord bring upon you until you are destroyed. You shall be left few in number, whereas you were as the stars of heaven in multitude, because you would not obey the voice of the Lord your God.
People, come back to the Father so we can get out of this mess. Come on back. Come on back home to the Father. Wake up. Wake up, Judah. Wake up, 12 tribes.
And you shall be plucked from off the land which you go to possess. Then the Lord will scatter you among all peoples, from one end of the earth to the other.
And they're going to beat the crap out of us and hang us and throw us up against the wall and talk to us bad. Pull us over the car and shoot us unarmed.
No rest, nor shall the sole of your foot have a resting place. But there the Lord will give you a trembling heart, failing eyes, and anguish of soul. Your life shall hang in doubt before you. You shall fear day and
Every time you get in a car and drive up and down the street, your life is hanging in front of you because you don't know which redneck going to come up of Esau descendant and take you out.
Which terrifies your heart, and because of the sight which your eyes see. And the Lord will take you back to Egypt in ships, by the way of which I said to you, you shall never see
Egypt.
And there you shall be offered for sale to your enemies.
Egypt means bondage. Egypt means bondage, people.
Around the corner, right? So what's life and what's death? According to the Bible. Right? Why you not doing that then? Wait, what's your nationality? You look destroyed, man. What's up, brother? Yeah, brother. That person goes off. Be up her gang saying, man, running their mouth. That's what's wrong with our peoples, man. See, because this is who they serve right here, bro. That's right. They got the crosses on because their favorite rapper got the cross on, so they don't want to wear it, man. Because Meek Mill and Drizzy Drake and Young Gunna got it on, so they going to do the same thing that they do, man. They want to be LeBron James wear the cross, man, so they going to put the cross on their neck, thinking that they represent God, man. Why we the only peoples in the hoods? How come the Japanese man don't live in the same neighborhoods we live in? How come the Arab man don't live in the same neighborhoods that we live in? What about the Vietnamese man? How come they can come in our neighborhoods and set up shops and bazaars and set up weed stores and wig stores and do your hair and do your nails, got a donut shop or every shop in the hood? How come they don't put them businesses in their own neighborhoods, man? It's because they blood sucking us dry. They robbing us blind, man. Because nobody want to serve the God of Israel. This is the only one who they want to serve right here is white Jesus. What's your nationality, bro? If I may ask. Info, pumping the gas, bro. What's your nationality, bro, if I may ask? What's my nationality? I come out of Judah. What about you? You said what? I said that's good, man. So give me Jeremiah 8:3, man. That's my things, bro. So that's the thing with our peoples, man. They're wondering why they on the bottom, man, because they don't consider the Most High God voice. All they trying to do is just tell them, just to obey his voice, man. But if I was passing out Kush blunts, he would have stopped. Read this. That's right. Book of Jeremiah, chapter 8, verse 3. Look at that. Death shall be chosen rather than life by all the residue of them that remain of this evil family, which remain in all the places whither I have chosen them. Saith the Lord of hosts. Say who? Saith the Lord of hosts. Say who? Saith the Lord of hosts. They be thinking we be saying our own things, man. We just coming out here prophesying to the people like the Most High God told us what to do. Wasn't Christ rebuking man? Wasn't John the Baptist rebuking in the gates? Wasn't Jeremiah, Zechariah, Zephaniah, Nahum, Rebecca? Wasn't they rebuking in the gates, man? Why is it a problem when we do it? Why is it a problem when we come out to the street corners just to try to give our people life? Why is it a problem? It's a problem, bro. Because we ain't out here passing out mixtapes like they see their homeboys doing it. We ain't out here passing out signed Stephen Curry basketball jerseys, Ezekiel Elliott football tickets. We out here serving out the word of the Most High God. That's what he told us to do. Come out here and prophesy by the mouth of the prophet. Jeremiah 29:19. That's why we out here, to do the Most High God's will. We'll find out a lot about people that hate God, man. Because their God is their flesh, their God is their belly. And they love serving the so-called white man. Read this. The book of Jeremiah, chapter 29, verse 19. Because they have not hearkened to my words, saith the Lord, which I sent unto them by my servants, the prophets, rising up early and sending them. But ye would not hear, saith the Lord. Said who? Said the Lord. Said who? Said the Lord. I don't want to hear nothing that God got to say, man, but I'm telling you, if we was out here should have bought a Honda, should have bought a Chevy, man. If we was out here promising to pay their way into heaven, man. If we was out here prophesying, telling them that they was going to get them 24s on that Cadillac, man, that they always dreamed that, man. If we was out here telling them, man, you going to get that Kush blunt that you was always dreaming for in the night, man. If we was out here telling them that garbage, man, we'll have a line all the way down Sunnyvale. But we telling them, man, that says you live, they don't want to hear it. Because they don't care about God no more. Give me 2 Timothy 3:1. This is who they serve, man. You'll see them, man, in a couple of weeks. They're going to be stuffing their mouth, man, with that good old fried turkey, man. That's right. With that honey glazed ham, they're going to be stuffing their chins with it, man. That's right. They're going to be stuffing their cheeks with it. It's an idolatry to the Most High God. That's right. Their brothers and sisters, their Native American Indians, man, 77 million of them got slaughtered, man, but our people don't care about nothing but that Kush blood, man. That's right. Our people don't care about nothing but that filth and Hennessy, man. Your people got destroyed by the so-called white man, by your enemy, man. That's right. And you'll commemorate that by stuffing that honey glazed ham with that pineapple on top of it, stuffing it down your throats, man. That's what's wrong with our peoples. They don't want to hearken. Read this, huh? The book of 2 Timothy, chapter 3, verse 1. This know also that in the last days perilous times shall come. That's how God say perilous times shall come, man, in the last days. Why the gas is always higher in the hoods, and you know nobody in the hood got a job, man. You know we can't afford nothing, man, with these low-income housing and low-income jobs that they put us in, man. Why they don't never do nothing for us in the hood, man? Why we can't get together for nothing? The only way we can get together, man, is somebody bringing a bottle of Ciroc or Hennessy or something. Somebody got a Kush blunt or something. We can't never get together and talk about the word to the Most High God. We get together to watch Ezekiel Elliott, though. For men shall be lovers of their own self. Man, you look at the blue camera. This is built on the blood of the Indians, our brothers, the Gadites. They was one of the tribes of Israel. The blood, and their blood is under these churches that's built all over the United States. That's right. These people died, over 100 million of them died, and these people go and celebrate that this week. The pastors never told you that was wrong what they was doing. They never told you what they was doing was sin, and it was out of order. That was a precept taught by men. God never told us to celebrate them days. He never told us once to celebrate Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, none of them days. Why are they celebrating it? Because their pastor taught them to celebrate it. That's right. Ezekiel chapter 22, verse 26. Her priests have violated my law. So we'll show you how the priests have violated the laws, but we're going to get to the law some more. Read. And have profaned my holy thing. This is what he was getting into. Read it some more. Finish that whole line. They have put no difference between the holy and profane. That's what he was talking about Thanksgiving. That is profane. Right. That's right. But yet, the church is going to have a turkey. But they won't keep the Feast of Hanukkah, which is also next week. Give me John 10:22. Because we have to be followers of Christ. That's right. So whatever Christ did in the scripture, we have to do it as well. But instead, the church went on to establish their own righteousness. They don't want to do what God says. They only want to do their own thing. Read John chapter 10, verse 22. And it was at Jerusalem, the feast of the dedication. Now, at Jerusalem, Christ kept the feast of dedication. It just so happened it's next week. From 27th sundown, that's the first day, to Thursday sundown. Christ kept that feast. But the Christian churches on that same day will be keeping what feast?
Thanksgiving.
Actually, there's not Thanksgiving coming up. Exactly, but all every Christian keeps it. What? My mama used to buy turkey. Almost every family that I know. But he just explained to you. Okay, what is the story behind Thanksgiving? What is the history behind it? Because I'm telling you, it's a profane holiday. It's profane. What is the history behind it? I need you to give me the history behind Thanksgiving.
History is home to a variety of busy communities within several confederations. These were the people of the first light, and they called their home the Dawnland. Political leaders were known as sachems and had been trading with Europeans for over 100 years before the Pilgrims. Relations soured only after deceitful Europeans kidnapped locals to sell as slaves. Permanent European settlement was impossible due to the already high population of native occupants.
You cannot trust Esau, people.
Introduced a disease to the Dawnland, whose inhabitants died in droves from a lack of immunity. In 3 years, up to 90% were wiped out in several confederations, including the Wampanoag. Their head sachem, Massasoit, was aware of how close they were to being subjugated by their unafflicted enemy, the Narragansett. He was determined to save his people from such a fate. This was the political world the Pilgrims were about to enter. The Pilgrims were not called Pilgrims by their contemporaries. They were known as Separatists, a branch of the English Puritans. King James hated Puritans and began persecuting them in 1604, so the Separatists fled to Holland, where they were free to worship. But because they feared losing their national and communal identity, the congregation wanted a new place to plant their church. They decided on America and asked King James for a patent that would grant them rights to build a colony.
You notice they got King James, a white man.
To pay off the debts to their investors.
But he probably was by that time. They probably had assassinated the
2
real.
months later, Cape Cod was spotted, and 16 men were sent ashore to inspect the area. Unfortunately, the settlers didn't know how to fish, and food was running out. They resorted to stealing from graves, homes, and storage pits to keep everyone alive. Then came their first hostile encounter with natives, but no one was killed. On December 12th, they reached New Plymouth. They did not land on any specific rock, but folklore insists they did. Construction began in January. By winter's end, 44 settlers would be dead from bad conditions. In March, they were surprised when a man named Samoset walked into New Plymouth, greeting them in English. He told them they were building on top of a village called Patuxet, whose residents had all died from the recent epidemic. It belonged to the Wampanoag, and their chief, Massasoit, was watching them. The settlers were eager to trade, so 5 days later, Samoset returned with furs and companions, including Tisquanto. Known famously as Squanto, he had come to tell them in perfect English that Massasoit had arrived. After years of dealing with Englishmen, the sachem did not trust the newcomers. Edward Winslow was sent to be a hostage and declared the settlers' peaceful intentions. Satisfied, Massasoit walked into New Plymouth and was regally greeted by the governor. A peace treaty was created, ensuring mutual protection if attacked by enemies. With the help of Squanto, New Plymouth settlers began to fare better. He taught them how to grow crops and was absolutely vital as an interpreter. To the Separatists, he was a gift from God. But in fact, Squanto had been kidnapped from Patuxet in 1614 and shipped to Spain to be
by the same people that he helped people. He helped them, but they helped him too. Took him for a goddamn slave. You cannot trust Esau.
Wiped away by the epidemic. Massasoit took him in with suspicion because of his years abroad, but needed a translator to parley with the newcomers. He eventually sent his warrior Hobamo to live among the settlers and keep an eye on Squanto. By fall, the settlers had a bountiful harvest and a feast was held to celebrate. Massasoit showed up with 90 warriors and 5 deer for the meal. For 3 days, the English and Wampanoag ate and entertained one another. This was the famous first Thanksgiving children learn about in school. However, the word Thanksgiving would not have been used by these settlers to denote a harvest feast. For Puritans, a day of Thanksgiving was a day of fasting while giving thanks to God in prayer. But the story of Pilgrims and Indians does not end here. During New Plymouth's first year, Squanto had been up to something. Realizing his substantial power as the only English speaker of his people, he conceived a plan to overthrow Massasoit. He persuaded locals he could command the English to make war or peace at his will. Hobomock was suspicious of Squanto and warned Governor Bradford. Soon enough, they discovered Squanto's plot and informed Massasoit, who was furious. He demanded Squanto be handed over for a swift execution. Bradford refused. The interpreter was too valuable to give up. But according to the treaty, Squanto's life belonged in the hands of his sachem. Bradford finally conceded. He was about to hand over Squanto when an unidentified ship appeared. The alarm it caused delayed Bradford and worried Massasoit's envoys. Angered and impatient, they left. The ship carried 60 Englishmen planning to build a colony near Boston. They abused the Massachusetts locals, initiating a conspiracy to kill the colonists. Warned about the plot, New Plymouth's leaders launched a preemptive strike to save their impudent countrymen. It bought peace for a time. In that time, more Puritan settlers arrived, soon outnumbering the natives. And while the Pilgrims' Treaty with Massasoit lasted until the sachem's death, other Puritans were not concerned with such alliances. Their fanatic religious principles assured no peace between the two cultures could last. To Puritans, Native Americans were the other, wild, savage, godless. With such an ideology, the outcome was inevitable. If they did not convert to Christianity and surrender their cultural identity, they had to be eliminated. The first Thanksgiving was a brief moment of harmony between two worlds, but sadly it was short-lived. The capitalist opportunities the Dawnland presented, combined with zealous puritanical beliefs, were incentive enough to wipe away the native inhabitants. There is nothing wrong with sharing a feast of thanks with loved ones, but remember the true events that started the holiday, and not the fairy tale.
And I'm here with my friends to tell you the real history behind this holiday. Growing up, I knew that what they told you in school about Thanksgiving wasn't true. That's not the true story. The true story behind Thanksgiving was, after every killing of a whole village, these European settlers celebrated it, and they called it Thanksgiving. But it wasn't until Abraham Lincoln became president that it became an official holiday. He ordered 38 Dakota men to be hung for war crimes after the sacred holiday Christmas. We take this time to remember our elders who lost their lives due to what really happened. Usually my mom makes a Native American dish for us and we pray.
Growing up, I would be kind of annoyed that they didn't know what actually happened on Thanksgiving and that they're actually celebrating the deaths of many people and many tribes that were lost.
Whether it's to give thanks or to be with your family, you should learn how the holiday was established in the first place.
I'm thankful for being born indigenous to this continent.
I'm thankful that I still have my culture.
I'm thankful that my elders kept our culture alive all these years.
I'm thankful to be indigenous, resilient, and alive.
I'm thankful for us all to be able to stand together, stand strong, and stand this one.
Happy Thanksgiving, America.
You shall become thy shade upon thy right hand. You shall protect thy incomings and outgoings.
In the winter of 1620, the Pilgrims at Plymouth are struggling to survive. The long journey to America has taken a heavy toll on the weary travelers. They were not equipped to deal with the many challenges in the New World, and nearly half perished in the early days of their journey. In the midst of their struggle, they humbled themselves and turned their hearts to God, praying for His mercy and providence to protect them and establish their community.
Dear Lord, find us in the wilderness.
Their prayers would be answered through a series of divine and tragic events that occurred years earlier in the life of a young native boy named Squanto. It was the early 1600s in the area that would soon be called Massachusetts. Tisquantum and his tribe were curious about the white men from across the ocean, who would visit their shoreline from time to time.
Where's all the tribes of Massachusetts? Leave it in the comment box. What do you think happened to all the tribes of Massachusetts? You think they just gave their land up?
Not satisfied with his income and looking for dishonest gain, came to the region looking for opportunities. Hunt broke trust with the tribes and took Tisquantum and 23 other natives aboard his ship. The natives were forced into the ship's hull and taken across the ocean to Spain to be sold into slavery. His trust for the white man grew in Tisquantum's heart during his travel.
This is for anybody out there says that the Native American is not Hebrew. Probably not them you seeing, they got like the $5 in you. But the real
Tisquantum did not know what his future would hold and wondered if he would ever see home again. Upon landing in Spain, the slave traders sold several natives. But Tisquantum was set free by a group of Spanish friars, who disrupted the event before Tisquantum's sale. The friars took him in, and he lived among them. He learned how to speak Spanish and about their Christian faith, about the one true God of the Bible, and his son Jesus. They taught him their self-sustaining lifestyle, planting and harvesting crops. Tisquantum grew to love and trust the monks, and life was good with them. But his desire to return home to his people, his tribe, never left him. He longed for the familiar places, the family and friends from whom he had been so violently taken. He prayed to God that somehow, someday, he would be able to return to his tribe. God heard his prayers. The friars devised a plan to get Tisquantum back to his homeland and to his beloved tribe. It would not be easy, and it would take several years, but their plan was put into action. He made his way to England, where he lived with and worked for an English businessman named John Slaney. Slaney and his Newfoundland company were looking for opportunities to expand trade with the New England natives. Tisquantum had learned how to speak English fluently and would earn his way back to America, working for the company as a translator. Hope sprung up in Tisquantum as he believed he would soon be home with his tribe. He remained in England for a few more years, but Tisquantum's hope never died. He'd been places that few in his tribe could even imagine, and he longed to tell them about all that he'd done and seen. Finally, in 1619, everything was in place. Once more, he sailed across the ocean, and this time, his destination was home. With his feet finally back on familiar soil, Tisquantum ran towards his village, excited to be reunited with his loved ones. His heart was crushed by what he discovered. Plague had ravaged his people only months earlier, and everyone had died. Of his tribe, only Tisquantum remained. Confused and alone, he pondered his existence, his purpose.
And the way the plagues got there was the white man brought it on
false
ships.
Hope in strange lands. Why did he make it
What
all
they
the
call
way
the
home,
Mayflower.
only to find such devastation? Thoughts of death were not far from him. He was accepted into the neighboring Wampanoag tribe, but in his heart, he knew he did not belong.
Look at those white men they got playing Indians. White man everything.
word came to Tisquantum that a group of European settlers had set up their camp on the very site of his former village. They were English, pilgrims. He spoke their language and knew their ways. He saw how they struggled to survive, how they prayed to Jesus for help, for hope. His heart went out to them, and he longed to help them. With the blessing of the Wampanoag chief, Tisquantum made his presence known. The pilgrims were filled with fear at the sight of him. So far, relations with the native tribes had not been easy, and tensions were high. As Tisquantum neared the entrance of the village, he raised his voice and spoke in perfect English.
My name is Tisquantum, and this is Big Bear. We mean you no harm.
The pilgrims were amazed at the sight and sound of him. They welcomed him in, and he made his home with them. In the spring, Tisquantum taught the pilgrims what he had learned from his own tribe and his time with the friars in Spain.
This morning, the Dallas Morning News reports a police officer in Arlington, Texas, has been placed on administrative leave after firing 3 shots at a dog and accidentally shooting and killing a woman nearby. The officer was checking up on a woman who was said to be passed out near a shopping center when the barking dog ran toward him. A police body camera caught the action.
Are you okay? Is that your dog? Can you get back?
The dog survived. It is unclear whether that dog belonged to the woman.
Can that motherfucker shoot?
People in the comments, they loving everything that you have to say. They want to make sure they can always get in contact with you. Obviously,
honored to be here with you.
Oh, it's an honor. And you know, we want to just give this one just some quick attention based off of this holiday that is among us called Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Now, Thanksgiving, as we know, is a holiday once you're in school that we teach to our kids that, you know, the pilgrims and the Indians come together and they share a feast.
Friendship.
And friendship. It's all about family and sharing, when ultimately, from my studies, and I'm pretty sure you can kind of expound on this even more, is that really that feast was ultimately a celebration for a massacre of over 700 Native Americans. And then once Abraham Lincoln, actually years later, then sanctioned it a holiday and kind of tried to clean it up a little bit. But the actual, you know, feast that the pilgrims were having during that time wasn't a celebration of friendliness or giving at all. It was really like, hey, they finally got some food because they had been starving. And they killed the godless Indians, which they called it. So I would love to just, you know, kind of pick your brain on that and just say, why is it that we celebrate Thanksgiving, and why haven't we heard the truth about Thanksgiving?
Well, I think you just laid it out. If you tell the truth, then you got to talk about an act of genocide.
Right.
Yeah, that first Plymouth colony in the early 17th century, you know, we know that they landed here in 1620.
Right.
Or as Malcolm said, Plymouth Rock landed on us.
Yeah, we didn't land on Plymouth Rock.
That's right. Plymouth Rock landed on us, brother.
Yeah.
And our Native American, the Wampanoag people in that region, Massachusetts, and they only came here, these white folks, with about 100 so-called colonists.
Wow.
By the time they got through that first winter, they were celebrating the fact that they had survived, but only about half of them survived.
Wow.
Yeah, and we only was a little over 50.
Wow.
So they had a little harvest. But before they had that harvest, they were dying from disease and starvation.
Right.
There are only 2 accounts that survived that give any testimony as to who was there at that first Thanksgiving. And both of them written from the white side.
Right.
We know now, looking at some of the records of trials, for example, that some of those folks weren't just eating vegetables and meat.
Right.
Well, they were eating meat, but some of the meat included
human meat.
Human meat, brother. Because when you're starving and somebody died, you're looking at them like, well, you're not using your body anymore, so maybe I just need to eat you.
So at the first Thanksgiving, there wasn't no turkey.
Well, they were giving thanks that they didn't have to eat each other anymore.
Right.
Although in their defense, in a little bit, some of them were tried for that because cannibalism was still something that they didn't want to do.
Wow.
But at some point, you have to survive.
Right.
You know. But the Native Americans, on the other hand, who apparently attended the first Thanksgiving. The Native Americans, who may have been as much as 90 folks who were there.
Right.
And there's no clear account as to why they were there.
Right.
They had plenty of food.
Right.
Cranberries, fish. They had done all
from the land.
From
it was their
It
land.
was their land. In fact, they did help some of those Europeans survive.
Right.
Now, looking back 500 some years later, that may have been a bad decision.
Right.
But they did help them, and they were celebrating. It wasn't friendship. Now, there were some Africans. There were some Native Americans.
Right.
There was one dude named Swanto, for example.
Right.
Who ended up being enslaved.
Wow.
That's how he learned English.
Wow.
So he became a translator.
Wow.
Because he had been pressed into service by these Europeans, who, as you said, looked at these Native Americans as they were godless.
Right.
So they gave thanks to their God for having taken land from people who didn't even see land that way.
Right.
Because they were like,
they didn't even see it as theirs. This is like land is land.
Exactly.
They truly believe this land is our land. This land is your land.
Your land. Nature.
Right.
In fact, they didn't even farm the
right.
way we think about farming.
Right.
When you look at the European style, they clear out the land, then they make rows of things.
Right.
The Native Americans, like, what are they doing?
Right.
You grow food in conversation with other food. So the squash, the pumpkins, the
it all
greens,
grew together.
It all grew together, and that way you get to replenish the land. Because what's taken from one gives to the other, and you don't have to keep clearing out land to plant new crops. You don't plant single crops.
Right.
So even the technology of Thanksgiving gives us this notion that somehow the Europeans were superior.
Right.
Their God was better, their science was better. But no, they had starved, they had disease, and about half of them had died.
Right.
And they celebrated making it through their first winter, and the Native Americans showed up to be like, well, I guess y'all made it. Meanwhile, they plotting on the Native Americans.
Man, and that's again, like even going back to what we discussed about Columbus Day, and you know that it should be shifted to Indigenous Peoples Day. But even again, this shows the kind hand and the generosity of the natives to it, even though it was a massacre. That that was all not. That was being set up, and therefore they were all thinking of, the Europeans were thinking to rob them the entire time.
That's right.
But these kind people were still willing to give their land, give their food, and share with them. And we almost, when we celebrate Thanksgiving, we almost, again, we see it from the European perspective as I'm giving you something and you're giving me something, when ultimately the natives were saving the Europeans. And even that idea, like, that should be something that we should embrace and celebrate. And even as, you know, we all gonna sit down and have our smoked turkey and chitlins
right.
and
Exactly.
ham and all that stuff. And we've turned it more into a cultural day about family.
Yes.
Which I can embrace. I mean, anytime we can get down and build with our generations and our family is important. But I think, again, that truth needs to come to the forefront of why these holidays were created, and even the purpose. And like I said, even so much so that I felt like Lincoln used it as propaganda.
Oh, you know he did.
To, again, bring people closer together, but at the idea to say, look at what the elite,
identity, a patriotism, a love of country,
a myth that everyone can follow.
Straight myth, brother. This is a guy who signs an Emancipation Proclamation, and in the same breath, then signs the death warrant on 38 Lakota Sioux in Minnesota. The biggest
talking about Abraham Lincoln.
People approved by a president, a guy named Little Crow, who was leading a revolt against the United States Army up in Minnesota.
Wow.
Same place they had Dred Scott and Harriet Scott
Really?
enslaved. Yeah.
And Lincoln signed that.
Lincoln signed a death warrant the same time he signed the Emancipation Proclamation.
Wow.
I mean, this is about taking their land from the Native Americans. Abraham Lincoln signed Thanksgiving into law. Yeah, he was giving thanks for taking land from Native Americans that he was responsible for dispossessing them of the land.
Wow.
And then, of course, it takes, when do we see it become on our calendar in November?
Right.
1941.
Oh, wow.
What's going on in 1941? World War II.
Yeah.
They need that national identity, that patriotism. Here's the thing that a lot of people don't know about Thanksgiving. Now, you know, you in and out of New York all the time. I was loving the man on the street.
Oh,
talking about, you gotta be able to vote like you did.
Right there.
That was genius, brother.
Genius.
But, you know, New York City, immigrants are coming. These white immigrants. They don't know they're white till they get to the United States.
Right.
Like we were talking about, they trying to avoid last place. So I'm from Hungary, or I'm from Germany, or I'm coming. So they come, they're getting jobs wherever they can.
Right.
A lot of these immigrants worked in the garment district in New York.
Right.
A lot of
Schmutta business.
Exactly. A lot of them end up working for R.H. Macy. R.H. Macy is, you know, of course, the department store guy, right? Now, they don't celebrate Thanksgiving. They don't know nothing about that.
Right.
So when it comes time for that time, where are they going to go? So they get in this national spirit. What do? They start wearing their national dress. They bring their national dishes. They bring them to the store. They bring them around and they exchange with each other because they're going to get in the mirror. Macy's people are watching this and they say, this is very interesting. So then
they capitalize off of
this. And so what do? They start doing a little march around the block to show off their clothes.
Right.
And then people start watching. Macy's like, this is interesting. Years later, we now have the
Macy's Day Parade.
And in that Macy's Parade, I'm sure you've been. I don't know if you're taking your kids yet.
Yeah, I've hosted it before.
Oh, that's right. Well, look, here's the thing. This is why I go to the Macy's Parade. I try to go if I'm on the East Coast because I like
by multiple countries. French.
Yeah, because I thought I read a document by the Portuguese in their own encyclopedia where they even admitted that the people there were the descendants of the lost tribes of Israel. That's right. So I wonder if that's the case, if the dispersed are beyond the river of Ethiopia, if from there, according to Deuteronomy, that they be shipping slaves into every nation. We know that there's people there that would ship the slaves to every nation. And it was for rum and also for to breed for slaves. And all of these things happen, and those people have been oppressed unto this day. There should be some kind of traces, some kind of evidence, some kind of DNA somewhere, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
You know, it just so happens that all of us share the same paternal ancestry, and that is based off of a haplotype called E1B1A.
Okay.
You look at that haplotype, you look at all the nations where on west coast of Africa we were taken, they all share the same DNA.
Interesting.
All share the same. And on the maternal side, L1, L2, L3, guess what? You're Israel. And it's not just America where we were sent to. We were sent truly all over the world.
Yes, sir.
United States of America, Canada, yes, you got some of us too. The Caribbean, South America.
Okay.
And then you also had something interesting happen with the Bantu expansion, where that's how we came into Africa and spread throughout. But part of that Bantu expansion, which happened over a long period of time, is a situation where as the Europeans came and were capturing Hebrews off the coast, our brothers and sisters were trying to escape, which forced their migration into East Africa. So you got tribes like the Limba, you got other tribes out there in East Africa, Abyssinia area, they're Israelites.
Right.
Guess what? They have E1B1A ancestry as well. They have L1, L2, L3 maternal ancestry as well. So we're scattered all over the world. And outside of that, Madagascar, Sri Lanka,
I hadn't bought any tickets for the show and I was late arriving. I was told it was sold out, but I persisted, and seeing how desperate I was to get in, the doorman at Barefoot, a hip Colombo cafe, acquiesced. Inside, everyone was fixated by this group. They call themselves the Kafirs. The Kafirs are also a long-forgotten minority people in Sri Lanka. They're originally from East Africa, but over generations have intermarried with Tamil and Sinhalese Sri Lankans. And now, their numbers are dwindling. The recent discovery of their music has made all things Kafir hugely popular in Colombo, chic even. There's something that moves me about their struggle to keep their culture alive, despite the pressures of assimilation and falling numbers. And I wanted to find out more about them and their history. It took just over 3 hours to reach the village of Sirumbadia in the northwest of Sri Lanka, to one of the last Kafir strongholds. A few Kafir women come to greet me. I find their smiles infectious. One of the women is named Ignacia. At 82, she's one of the eldest in the shrinking community. I asked Ignacia to tell me about her roots, but her memories, like those of many elder Kafirs now, are fragmentary.
ඉතිහාසයේ අපිට ඉතින් වැඩි දන්නේ අපේ දෙමාපියෝ කියාපු එක තමයි අපි දන්නේ. අපි ලංකාවේ ඉපදිච්ච කට්ටිය. අපේ පප්පා නම් පිටරට අප්‍රිකා කියලා කිව්වා. ඒ ඉඳලා තමයි හමුදාව. ගෙනාවේ ඒක. ඉංග්‍රීසි කාරේ. ගෙනාවලා මෙහි ලංකාවේ මොරට කියලා කියාපු කට්ටිය තමයි අපේ පප්පලා කියලා ඔක්කොම.
Historians say that the Kafirs started arriving in Sri Lanka from the eastern shores of Africa in the 1500s with the Portuguese, and then later, in more waves, with the different colonizers of Sri Lanka. Ignatius' family believed that they are descended from Portuguese slaves brought over by the British in 1817. Ignatia is one of the remaining few who still speaks the lyrical Creole. But she is afraid that her language may vanish soon. With Kafir music so popular right now, all the exposure may be helping them stay alive as a group.
India, Pakistan, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, all the way as far away as Papua New Guinea.
Now, many of them wear yarmulkes. They've recently acquired prayer shawls. They've started celebrating quite specifically Jewish holidays, like Passover, for instance, and Hanukkah.
The Gogodala say they have always been Jews. In fact, their original ancestors, they say, came from Jerusalem.
And our ancestors believe, they passed down the story that we traveled in that canoes. The canoes came from a place called Yebisama. And we believe that Yebisama is in Israel, which is Jerusalem at this time. Because at that time, that place was still known as Yabis. And that's our ancestors and our forefathers told us that that's our homeland. And we will return one day to that place, Yabisama, in the west.
A traditional dance of the Gogodala relates the story of their exodus from Israel and predicts their eventual return.
We are praying that the Lord's word will be fulfilled through us. When it says in the Bible, when Yeshua is coming, before he comes, all his people, his chosen people, will go back to Israel.
Our people have been scattered. Guess what? You and me. One group of people, massive amount, that share the same genetic DNA that ties back to Israel.
Isn't it a prophecy that says that Israel will be scattered to the four corners of the earth? Absolutely. Do you find enslaved Jewish people in Papua New Guinea? You see the European slaves over there?
No.
Oh, okay. How about Brazil?
They own plantations.
No, they you're right. And
they own slaves.
Yeah, and slave ships.
And the slave ships.
Oh, okay.
And they financed and insured most of those slave ships.
Oh, true.
Pretty interesting.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, so it's kind of, that means it wouldn't line up with the prophecy at all.
No, it wouldn't line up with the prophecy at all.
But God never lies, right? He's never wrong.
That's right.
Okay. Because I believe that too. He is never wrong.
That's what the book said. I trust the book.
Okay. So yeah, so it's interesting that they asked. I thought it was kind of funny that the fact that they say you know, we're not people, but even the word Bantu means the people.
Right. And on top of that, it's very interesting. You know, you hear things saying, well, you know, we don't have Abraham, we don't need without y'all being Israel. But even as more recent as 2016, there was a DNA paper that was released that showed our paternal ancestry in Israel. Yeah, you hear about the Tufians in Israel. That's Israel. That's us. Go look it up.
Yeah, and I read this article. It's called Crania Egyptica. With some brothers who did this research on the same thing, and they found these two different skulls in ancient Egypt. And they found out that one of them was slightly different than the other one. And the researchers basically found out that the conclusion they came up with, that one of them was the skull of a Negro.
Oh yeah.
And the other one was the Egyptian, and how they were slightly different, but they both were in Egypt. And then they claimed that the graves the mass graves they found, when they found these skulls at, was the servants. So the servants, according to this guy, were the Negro slaves in the study that was done called Crania Egyptica in ancient Egypt. Now it's interesting that
Egypt, huh?
Yeah, that Israel was servants in Egypt, in ancient Egypt. Interesting. But I guess you didn't read that.
He didn't study that. Somebody need to go do some more research on that.
Personally, I don't want him to be black.
Maybe he X'd out. Then that's the reason why.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I strongly encourage the brother to, you know, open up some books and kind of get into it, because I mean, you're doing a disservice to the nation of Israel. I mean, basically by denying their heritage and also mocking their language. That's shocking to me. I mean, I don't understand how a brother would not the language of the book he holds so dear to.
Yeah, it don't make sense to me either. But everything teaches on. You know.
Yeah, you know. Hey.
So when you look at that, when you look at the people, when you look at the prophecies, when you look at what actually happened, when you look at history, when you look at oral traditions, when you compound all those things, and then when you put them all together, it's case closed. I mean, there is no other people that fulfill all those prophecies.
I think another thing that Mr. Craig might need to look into is the fact that there are brothers and sisters all over this world that are reaching out to us and acknowledging the fact that they are Israel. And you know what's even more amazing? It's amazing to me, is that they're reaching out to us and they're saying, you know, we've always known that we are the nation of Israel, that we are the people of Israel. But the challenge has been that we have to have people that we can trust with our history, with our heritage, with our knowledge, our culture. But you know, the great thing about it is now they've found some people that they can actually trust. And they're actually sharing this wealth of Hebraic knowledge information.
Okay, hold on. G. Craig Lewis said that Frank Cherry is the first person to come up with black Hebrews. He said he had a vision.
Okay.
Oh, so he had a vision in the little lines. Hey, Hebrews are black, and nobody thought that before then.
Now, going back to what you were saying earlier, Carmina, the guy who helped lead this false claim, Frank Cherry, he was the first man to receive the vision about the heritage of blacks and Jews. Frank Cherry. He was the first man to receive the vision. He was the first man to receive the vision. He was the first man to receive the vision. He was the first.
Interesting that they focus on Frank Cherry. So let's focus on Frank Cherry, since they say that he was the first person to have the vision or to think that Israelites were black. By the way, if you want to know where every last point that G. Craig Lewis and his little team came up with came from, you can go to Bible Answer Man Hank Hanegraaff's blogspot. It's called The Origin and Insufficiency of Black Hebrew Israelite Movement by Jimmy Butts. Shout out to Pastor Richardson Kelly for ripping the cover off that one. So your boy Jimmy Butts, in his article, talks about how Frank Cherry started his church in 1886. And that's when the supposed birth of the thought that Israelites were black came from. It's pretty interesting. So the church was founded in 1886, and the alleged Black Hebrew Israelite movement was birthed in the 1900s. Well, let's see if we can find somebody else that had another quote-unquote vision that Israelites were black. I might not have no prophet, but maybe I can get a historian and geographer. Conrad Monte-Bern, born mathematician Conrad Bern, and sometimes referred to simply as Monte-Bern, was a Dano-French geographer and journalist. His second son, Victor Adolphe Monte-Bern, was also a geographer. Today is perhaps best remembered for coining the name for the geographic region Oceania around 1812. Conrad, in his book, Universal Geography, wrote the following in his book. A fact worthy of the attention of travelers is that according to Oglethorpe, the kingdom of Luango contains black Jews scattered throughout the country. They are despised by the Negroes who do not even design to eat with them. They are occupied in trade and keep the Sabbath. They won't say the Sabbath, they say the Shabbat. But so strictly that they don't even converse on that day. They have a separate burying ground, very far from any habitation. The tombs are constructed with masonry and ornamented with Hebrew inscriptions. The singularity of which excites the laughter of the Negroes, who discern in them only serpents, lizards, and other reptiles. Universal Geography, or a description of all parts of the world. Monte-Bern Conrad, 1775 through 1826. Now, didn't Frank Cherry start his church in 1886? Didn't this whole movement start in the 1900s? So why would a white European geographer and historian be writing about black Jews in the Congo when he visited West Africa? Why would he publish it in his book in the mid-1700s before the Frank Cherry movement even started? I thought Frank Cherry was the first one that had a vision. I thought nobody even thought about blacks being Israelites until Frank Cherry. So why is a European writing about it? So these people from these other countries, like what countries you talking about?
Oh, Papua New Guinea.
Okay.
Abyssinia, Ethiopia.
So they
Kenya.
So they didn't meet Frank Cherry. Oh yeah, the Kikuyus. Don't they got ancient traditions about them being ancient Israelites too?
No, Kenya.
Yeah, so they didn't meet Frank Cherry either. Oh man, he must have got maybe he had like Facebook before Facebook existed.
I don't know about that one. Maybe Telegram or something like that.
Yeah, but maybe like it was Facebook, but it was like we call it Morse code.
Yeah. I mean, I think they they had a knowledge of who they were as a people. They don't have to make that up.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that's my thought. I mean, I'm gonna take people by their word.
Because that seemed like the same thing. Because I heard the guy say the same thing.
Yeah,
the guy people.
Yeah,
they got the history.
Igbo.
Igbo.
You know, the name is very similar to Hebrew, isn't it? I don't know. It's kind of interesting.
Brother Rabbi Kute Alma, he talks about how even the area of Igbo land, but I'm guessing the area of Ghana, Togo, but then Nigeria at one point in time was not called Nigeria. It was called the slave trade is called the Negritia or Negro land. But before then, he said the natives called it Ebe land. So it's interesting that if you go back look at the original translation of the word Ebe, it's the original spelling of the word Hebrew.
That's right. Well, what about the Ivory Coast?
Oh yeah, Coast Ivry.
You know, with that many elephants out in that area, so I don't know if there was.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure it out. Why are they calling it Ivory when you can go get a strong concordance and you see that the word Ivory is actually the word Hebrew? Right. Interesting. All that's on that coast. Okay. So, but that makes sense. That does line up with prophecy, but it don't line up with G. Craig Lewis.
Not G. Craig Lewis.
Maybe he needed G. Craig Lewis and Clark over there to do some research.
You know what? He might be enlightened. You never know. The Bible might come through.
Yeah. But I mean, he do research. I mean, he heard about Frank Cherry. Nobody else did, but he knew about Frank Cherry.
About Frank Cherry?
Yeah. Nobody else did. I got some brothers. We'll get interviews. They didn't know about about Frank Cherry either. But he knew about it. So,
man. So Wikipedia or something like that.
Yeah, maybe it's Wikipedia. There was the other brother too, so I think maybe it's doing that. So.
Okay. Well, yeah. So I mean, as you can clearly see, I mean, bottom line is, our people have been scattered all over this world. There's only one group of people that have been scattered all over this earth, and that's been us. There's only one group of people that fit the prophecies of the blessing and the curse. There's only one group of people that's being exploited on the level that they are. So, I think it's pretty much case closed.
I agree, sir.
We're people.
Shalom.
Shalom.
So now you have seen all the evidence. You have seen both sides of the story. Now we're going to leave it up to you as the audience to weigh both evidence, like we're in a court system, and you make an informed or educated decision yourself. We never like to just be one-sided. You can see both sides of the story, and then we can get to the truth because of the information. So, but this is what I want to say to everybody. You have to be very careful and watch what you're speaking against because you don't understand. Right. Or because somebody gave a bad representation. Because you could be speaking against the work of the Most High. Right. You don't know. If you haven't done the due diligence of prayer, fasting, and studying, you could be speaking your mouth against something that the Most High is doing. That way, you're not fighting Hebrew Israelites. Right. You're fighting the Most High. You can fight His awakening, and you can get yourself in trouble. You have to be careful. Because this is extremely important. But guess what? It's not important to us. It's important to the Most High. Right, right. Because from the time that the Most High made a covenant with the nation of Israel, and He set up that covenant, and He told them, I'm going to stand before you this day, a blessing and a curse. He said, choose life so what you and what your descendancy can live. So the emphasis wasn't on just the fathers, but the emphasis was on the children. Right. That's why one decision can cost your whole lineage. That's why it's important to be careful. And when we broke the covenant, it's been His heart desire chasing after us. Right. To what? Bring us back what? Unto Him. He said, I don't desire you to have these atrocities happen to you, but I must honor what I've spoken out of my mouth. Because if I've spoken it, it can't return unto me void. That's right. So those that I love, I do what? I chastise them. That's right. So my chastisement of the nation of Israel is my heart for my children. And you're going to speak against it. You have to be careful. Because when we broke the covenant made us from the head and it made us tail. And it made us the tail. This is why now scripture makes more sense to us now. Right. It says what? The first, them that are first, who was what? Israel. They shall be last. Because what they broke the covenant. But it says, don't stop right there. Because it said, eyes ain't seen, ears ain't heard, neither has it entered into the heart of men the things that I have prepared for them that love me. He said, those that are last shall return. That's right. Shall come back in their fullness and become first again. Because what? I have spoken it. And so this is why you have to be careful when you hear prophecies like, it don't matter if you're in the east, in the west, in the north, in the south. I'm going to come after you and regather you. Things that are spoken by the prophet. This is why the Messiah said, I don't come to destroy the law of what the prophets, the prophecies, the things that are said, but I came to what? Give them complete fullness and purpose and completeness. In order so they can what? If they accept me, they get the seal of the covenant and have an opportunity to receive the promises. He didn't come initially to take them out of there, but He came to seal them. This is why in the first covenant, when the lamb had to do what? The lamb had to die before they can enter on their way to the promise. Right. What? The blood did what? It sealed them. It didn't take them right to the promised land, but it got them ready to walk towards the promise. Just like when He came, the lamb had to die first in our time to seal us. This is why some would say, well, when they say that those that are in Christ Jesus are not under no law, are not under no curse. I've been redeemed from the curse of the law. Right. Now watch this. You've been redeemed from the curse, but you haven't been taken away from the effects of it. Because why? When we got cursed in the first covenant in Adam, are we still working by our brow? That's right. Christ came. Are women still having what? Pain when they have children. Right. That curse came upon who? All of mankind. and Christ came and died and redeemed us, but it didn't take us from the presence of that yet till he returned again. And then the thing that he sealed in us by his blood and by his Holy Spirit gives us the earnest expectation to receive the kingdom. That's why he said, by great tribulations must we enter the kingdom. Him that was endured to the end, endured to the end, shall be what? Saved from what? Your enemies. That's right. And able to reign with me 1,000 years. So it's important to understand that this message is not just important to us, but if this don't come the way the Most High said, if he don't come back and get the nation of Israel, he's speaking as a lie. He said, I'm not a man that I should lie. He said, I will not alter or break my covenant, which I have declared. If he don't honor what he said, if he choose another people, if he replace Israel, then that makes him a lie.
Right.
And he can't be God and not worthy of being served.
That's right.
So he can't pick another people and make it his people. He can't replace Israel. He have to speak what the prophets declared, because he was speaking through the mouth of the prophets even unto our time today, prophetically, to return us back as we turn to Messiah. So it's important, as my closing statement, to understand and be mindful and careful what you're speaking against, because you could be speaking against the God, the creator of all creation, the Yah of the earth. Shalom.
When the scripture teaches, this for everybody that might be your first time hearing this, think about everything we just said. Think about what the prophecies say. Think about our plight. When we've been in this country for I don't know how long. Well, I do know how long, 399 years. The time we spend in this country, we know that we're people of faith. We always been, right? Even our oppressors used to write documents saying that. You go read about Margaret Sanger. What Margaret Sanger, she knew that black people in general were moved by their pastors. We were moved by our faith leaders. So they set up a system to try to get us to what? Kill our own children. We know that whole. I'm not getting on that whole soapbox, but they knew that was something that they could use against us in that vein. So let's bring that back. When you understand that, when you understand who we are and how faithful we've been in this walk, you got to ask yourself, what's missing? What's missing? How can we serve the same Elohim for years and years and years and only get the worst of life? How can we serve this, go to the same churches, serve the same God that our oppressors serve, and our oppressors be blessed while we remain to be cursed? How can we be the ones who don't have any store when we have done nothing to set up or earn what we've been going through, but yet we're in the same situation? It gotta be something else. There's gotta be something that's missing. Do we love the Most High? Of course we do. Do we love Messiah? Of course we do. So what is missing? How come our situation haven't changed? When the scripture says that what a man sow, he must also reap. Why are they not reaping? Why are we the ones reaping when we're not the ones who transgress? We haven't enslaved anyone. We haven't done anything to anyone. Let that permeate in your mind. What's missing? And then go and read the covenant, and when it talks about when you reject the covenant, what will happen to you? What situation you will be in? What will be your plight? When you understand that, and then parallel that and find out what's the end game. The scripture says, check this out, when all these curses and all these things happen to you, and then check this out, when you what? Turn back to the covenant. That's the only thing that we've been missing. We know that there is no salvation without Yahushua HaMashiach, the Messiah. Right? We know that. So we know him. What are we missing? Scripture says when you turn back to the laws, the statutes, and the commandments, he says what? Then I'm going to turn your captivity. I'm going to turn your oppressors around. I'm going to turn your situation around right before your eyes. So why is G. Craig making these videos like that? Why is TD Jakes? Because they see what? The captivity turning. They see it turning. They see people rising up. They see men come together. They're like, what's going on? Why are these people, they having conferences trying to figure out, scrambling how to change this thing, because they know what's going on is prophecy. Because the scripture says, when you remember yourself in the land of your slavery, and turn back to him, that he's going to turn that captivity. So this is the mindset. If you, it should be a point where you tired. Our ancestors, when we was in Egypt, we wasn't tired yet. So what the Most High do? He turned up the temperature. Things got worse. The more affliction, more struggle, until we got to the point that we can let Egypt go. So we in the same position. You wonder why heat's getting turned on? Why is discrimination at an all-time high? Why does it seem like we back in the 60s all over again? Because the Most High is trying to bring you out of Egypt. He's trying to bring you out of Babylon. He's trying to let you see and question things. Why do you got people like John MacArthur saying that social justice is the enemy of the church? So when people say social justice, you know what that means? That means causes of minorities. Why are causes of minorities the enemy of the church? Why is G. Craig Lewis saying that he don't want nothing black in heaven? Let these things resonate in your mind. What's the purpose behind it? Why? Because it's a time when you got to let Egypt go. When you got to understand who you are. You got to turn to the Most High. Stop depending on man. Don't take me a Mars word for it. Search it out for yourself. Pray about it. See what the Most High open your eyes. When the truth is standing right in front of you, but you won't see it because of a man. So again, now the scripture says high time. What did Mashiach say? He came with the Hebrew man to what? Repent. Repent from what? Repent from your sin. What sin? Sin is the transgression of the law. Turn from that sin. Go back to the covenant. Understand what the Most High has given to our people and what he's going to do. And that's the situation we're in. And as long as we do that, salvation is on the way. Has Jeremiah 8 been the basis of identifying who Israel is?
No, we didn't know.
You know more than 8 Hebrew words, JT.
I'll check this out. Barak Haba Bashem Yahuwah. Blessed be he that cometh in the name of the Most High. Matthew 23 and 19. I'm learning, bro.
What kind of wings I'm a shoot stuff with?
You hold it down to your head and say, say ya!
That didn't happen.
Hey, Shema Yisrael, Yahuwah, Elohim, Yahweh Akkad.
You heard it?
They won't say the Sabbath, they say Shabbat, 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 Shabbat. Downplay the New Testament.
I know, actually. You've just done a wonderful series. All based out of the New Testament for 6 months now.
You know, because Jesus spoke Arabic, 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 Arabic. One thing that Craig Lewis is hyper on, harping on is, oh, that's done away with. We in the new covenant, right? That's done away with.
Breaking it in.
Right. So I'm you know, that's the main count right there.
Awesome wonder and mighty ruler, the King of all these.
Shalom, shalom, Mr. Bob. Colt 2019. Buchanan Dam in Texas. Awesome! All praise to the Most High God. This is my first smoke, and I'm so excited to have had this opportunity to experience it. In January, I prayed and asked the Most High if He would give me the opportunity to attend Pesach and Tabernacles, and He blessed me to even go to trumpets this year. So all praises He does above and beyond what we ask or think. And it was so awesome to meet so many of my brothers and sisters here from Texas, and we came from Chicago, and met a lot of people here that I met at Pesach, and I'm looking forward to next year. So if you didn't get a chance to come this year, we prayed for you, and we're going to be praying that you can make it next year, because we need to gather ourselves, Israel. Hallelujah!
Shalom, shalom, Israel. Came to support me and my family with the ox. Mr. Kai was wonderful. Y'all baptized me in my Isha. I can't tell you how much fun and how the Most High was here, and the things that I witnessed, the things that I've learned and gained. So till next, until next time I see you, y'all with us. Shalom, shalom.